What's up, guys? Jeff here from Grit City Fitness and Performance. Today I want to talk to you about a point which I'm going to call, are you making mouses into monsters? Are you making mouses into monsters? All right, so let's just dive right in. When I was little, I used to watch a lot of cartoons. Some of the cartoons would play, a mouse. And they would have this thing where the mouse would run around and you'd see the mouse on the wall. But what you saw on the wall was the shadow of the mouse. And that shadow was massive. It was large. It was scary. It was intimidating. Like, usually they would exaggerate the shadow a little bit. It'd have claws and fangs and all kinds of stuff. But then you'd be watching and you just see this shadow, this big, scary, dark shadow. And then it'd pan to the mouse. And the mouse would be this little, frail little mouse. And he would squeak, usually run off and go about his business with absolute no impact to what was actually happening or why he was scary to the person. And the reason this is important is because oftentimes what we look at as struggles, challenges, even like the stories we run in our head are much like the shadow. They're exaggerated and overblown, yet when the problem actually comes to the point of execution or being able to solve the problem, we realize that the problem is much more like the mouse. It's timid, tiny, and will run away and be very easy to deal with. All right. So what I really want to give you here, and what I want you to take away from this, is understanding that we make things bigger than they really are. Right? We turn a mouse into a monster, and then we fear the monster because that's what we believe it is, until we realize and recondition ourselves to realize that the shadow in the monster that we're seeing is really nothing more than a tiny mouse with a reflection of the shadow. But you will never notice how big or scary the mouse really is if all you do is look at what the shadow looks like, right? So what I want you to consider is, where in your life are you only looking at the shadows, the big scary monsters, instead of looking at the problem as what it is, the actual problem, or the thing that you're having a hard time achieving or overcoming or strategizing to figure out how to achieve, right? So for instance, maybe your struggle right now is you have a hard time dialing in your nutrition. Because of this, you look at all nutrition as one big monster that is very difficult to deal with, hard to track. It's scary to put in your information. And so we exaggerate the points to make them scary, big, and intimidating, something that will scare us away from taking action. Instead of realizing that, listen, it's just a small little mouse. All we have to do is overcome the mouse. So what I want you to take away, guys, and what I want to ask you first is, where in your life are you turning mouses into monsters? Right? Where are you turning mouses into monsters? Okay, so that's question one. Part two is, how can you start to assist yourself in recognizing when you're looking at shadows versus when you're looking at mouses? So what that means is, what can you start doing to trigger your mind mentally to realize, hey, I'm being paranoid about the shadow and not even acknowledging the mouse here, right? I'm looking at the monster that's not actually here, and I need to be looking at the mouse. So where can I, or what systems or processes, implementation can you put in to help trigger yourself to realize, hey, I'm looking at the monster, let me look at the mouse. And third is, what can you do moving forward to help reduce the shadows that you're seeing, the monsters and shadows that you're seeing, and stop seeing those and start seeing only the mouses, right? So mouses instead of monsters. Now let me again pull back just a little bit. Why do we get shadows? Shadows happen because of bad lighting, or lighting in a way that gives the object some sort of shadow, right? So usually like dim lighting or side lighting, or if you understand lighting, I'm not good at lighting in general, but I understand it a little bit. But basically, shadows come from bad lighting placement or not enough light, right? So if we understand that shadows come because of not enough light, most of our problems, the problems that we're seeing and having, those monsters that we have, are nothing more than just badly lit rooms, badly lit situations. So how can you start shining more light on the situations that you currently have experienced or are going to experience in the future, and shine more light on them to where you no longer have the shadows, you no longer have those monsters that are created, and you only see the mouses, the true problems that you have. And when you can do that, you'll see no longer is the big monster scary. It's really just this tiny mouse, and it's much easier to maneuver when now I only have to deal with the mouse and not the monster that's hypothetical. So let's take it back again, guys. First question is, where in your life are you currently making mouses into monsters? Where are you currently watching the shadows instead of the actual issue? Okay. 2, what can you implement for yourself to start acknowledging and realizing when you are looking at shadows instead of the actual thing? Or when are you creating monsters instead of mouses? And 3rd is, how can you, or where can you start shining more light on things to eliminate the shadows and stop having that monster and only having the mouse? So that's it, guys. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense and you can grasp this idea, because it really is that simple. It really is as simple as we just have a tiny little mouse and we shine the wrong light on it, and it turns into this massive monster that scares the shit out of us and makes us not take action on the things that we want, instead of realizing that the problem is not actually the problem. The problem is the tiny thing, and we need to address the tiny thing by shining a little bit more direct light or lighting the room better to see the problem instead of the monster. That's it, guys. Hopefully you got a lot of impact from this and you have those 3 answers right away.